Welcome to The Fight with Teddy Atlas, presented by Dynamic Striking. I'm Ken Rideout, joined as always by the voice of combat sports, the great Teddy Atlas. Teddy, how you doing?
Good. I got a little bit different introduction or beginning here, and I think it's appropriate. I just got a news flash: faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Look up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman. Yes, it's Superman, strange visitor from another planet who came to Earth with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men. Superman, who can change the course of mighty rivers, bend steel in his bare hands, and who disguised as Ken Rideout, mild-mannered reporter for a great metropolitan podcast, fights a never-ending battle for truth, justice, the American way, and endurance. Find out how far a person can push himself. You just got back from the Gobi Desert, 155 miles, 6 days across that piece of sand. Longest day that you had to run was 50 miles. You wore a 20-pound backpack throughout the race, since you had to carry all of your food and, of course, athletic greens for the full race. You had to carry, I guess, a sleeping bag. I think you took the lead. I'm not sure if it was on day 3 or 4, and then you held on to it, and you won by 90 minutes, basically dominated the field of about 120 contestants from all over the world, from ages 20 to 70. I hope they find that 70-year-old out there before his body completely decomposes. Ultra endurance stage race, your first one, and I think is probably your last one, but congratulations. I wanted to give you the props that you deserved, so I pulled out that introduction, that theme song that I think was appropriate for this. I tell you, of all things difficult yet possible, when one is willing to challenge themselves to find out how far they can go in whatever it is they do, and in this case, you found out that you could literally run across a desert, and not on a movie set, but in real life. So I just figured that I should introduce you that way and just kind of say to all our fans out there that I have one thing to say, and that would be, let's go. Let's today be the beginning of a new chapter in your life where you find out how much further you can go, where you challenge yourself to be more. Not to run a desert, but you don't start with deserts, but just you do more than yesterday with the attitude that tomorrow will be more than today. And, when we do our fights here, which we're doing in a few minutes, the participants, just like you just gave kind of a teaching lesson of how far one can push himself, the fighters, they often teach us and inspire us to often open new doors in our houses and explore unoccupied rooms, as I often talk about, where you just find out something about yourself you didn't know yesterday, and you wouldn't have known if you didn't take a risk. You wouldn't have known if you weren't willing to go, quite frankly, to a place that, was a little scary. I'm sure it had to be a little scary going to the desert, with all strangers for 6 days. I mean, I'm sure you made a few friends with the scorpions, right? You probably brought back maybe a pet scorpion. I don't know. I'm not going over your house, I can tell you that much, until your wife tells me that everything has been cleaned out, from your bags, from your packs, from everything. I mean, besides the sand. But congratulations, just congratulations. Tell us a little something about, I mean, it had to be a crazy experience, a good experience, but I would think one that kind of tells you that there's nothing that's I mean, almost nothing that's impossible when you have your mind made up that you're going to do something and you find the wherewithal to do it, the urgency. You know, your urgency came from just wanting to prove to yourself that you could do such a thing. And it must have been really a lot of things. It must have been inspiring at the end, but it must have been scary. You must have asked yourself a couple of times, why did I commit to this? Because, you know, I want people to know that spectrum of human emotions is normal when a person does something that is beyond the pale of what they normally would have thought possible. So bring us through it a little bit. I'm sure people would. We just had a great interview we put up last week with Jerry Eisenberg, and I'm sure people enjoyed hearing those stories. I'm sure people will enjoy hearing some of this story.
Yeah, no, thanks for all that, Teddy. I appreciate you. I appreciate Rob and Sam. I love being part of this team, and I was trying to represent the team as well as I could. And I think when you attach yourself to things bigger than you, it creates a bigger sense of responsibility in your life. And to answer your question about being scared, I would say that I was scared shitless. I felt just like a fighter would feel walking into the ring. Like, why did I commit to doing this? When I got there, it took me about 35 hours of traveling to get to Mongolia. I went to Atlanta, then to Korea, then to Mongolia, then an hour drive into a town called Ulaanbaatar, and then a 5-hour bus ride out to where the race started. And the first night we get out there, I'm in a tent with 3 women, an Irish woman, a Filipino.
Now stop. You're married. Stop. Hold on a minute. You're married to a beautiful woman. You have a great marriage. You have 4 beautiful children. Your wife knows you. I assume she watches this.
Yeah.
She knows you. Now, look, we know nothing happened. I mean, but not a lot of wives would be thrilled about hearing that. Yeah, I am the ultra race champion. I ran across the desert. I slept in a tent with 3 women. What? I mean, the first part is like,
it was
good. The second part,
I brought with me a 1-person tent, and the first day we got there, it was raining like cats and dogs. It was torrential pouring, and they had big communal tents. And the woman said, listen, you can get in one of those tents. There's 4 people to a tent. Someone didn't show up with the women. When you're 6 days in the desert without a shower, without using a toilet, just using nature, there is nothing but survival going on. Like, nothing is on your mind except surviving, eating, and getting to the next step. So these women were the nicest. Quite frankly, I was happy to be in the tent with the women. Like, the guys were snoring. You can imagine eating 6 days of freeze-dried food, what people's bodies were doing. It was the women were great. They became like my best friends. And so yeah, when I got there the first night, it's pouring rain, and I was literally like, I'm not shitting you. I won the race by 90 minutes. There were times at the first night where I was on the verge of tears in my tent thinking, why did I do this? I have a beautiful family. I live in a beautiful house. I've been so lucky in my life. Why am I here? Why did I do this? I was just like a fighter. I was praying for the lights to go out. I was praying to get hit by the lightning.
Doing the interview the right way. I've been doing this a long time on ESPN. The appropriate step in is right now. Why did you do it?
Because I didn't want to be, I was comfortable doing marathons. I knew I could show up and empty the tank for 2.5 to 3 hours. I know I can do that. I know what to expect from myself. This race scared the shit out of me. And I was like, oh, just like when I went to a boxing gym the first time. Oh, you're scared to fight? I'm going to go in there and deal with it and confront it head on until the fear doesn't control me. And then when you get there, you're like, oh my God, this is why people don't do things that scare them, because this is hard. And you know, yes, I wanted to quit. I wanted to leave, but there was 2 voices in my head. One saying, leave, get out of here, self-preservation. And then the bigger voice saying, no, we're winners. We're champions. We're here to do it. Everyone's feeling the same thing. Take advantage of them when they're scared. You go out and step on their neck and get them. And
what were you looking to find out?
I tried
one thing for the fans. One thing. What were you looking to find out that you didn't know?
I knew from doing Ironman races that experience especially in longer events, even the marathon versus a 5K or 10K, when you do anything for more than a few minutes, there's so many things that can go wrong. When you do things for 10 hours in an Ironman, a lot of things can go wrong. When you do things for 6 days in a desert, immeasurable things can go wrong. And I wanted to see, could I figure out how to overcome those obstacles? Because I've never slept in a tent in my life. I've never run with a backpack. I've never eaten freeze-dried food. Did I bring enough food? I was burning 10,000 calories a day, and I only had 2,500 per day to eat. That's all I had with me. Whatever you have, that's what you have. There was there was no store. We were in frickin' no man's land. We didn't see, the only thing that I would see when we were running were herds of cattle and herds of wild horses, occasionally a wolf, and a bunch of other crazy animals, camels and desert creatures, but no people. Occasionally we'd see some nomads and herders out in the middle of nowhere on horses. But I wanted to see, could I figure this out? And if nothing good happens when you're comfortable, when you're in your comfort zone.
Sounds like a scene from the John Wick movie at the end when he was when he went out and was looking for something out in the desert. But that's extraordinary.
There were times when I was crawling up a sand dune for like 20 minutes at a time to go 100, 200 yards in the sand, where I was thinking, if I'm struggling like this, what is the rest of the pack doing? Like, someone's going to die out here. And someone did die at this race before. They had to take their body out on a camel. There was no rescuing you. This was like real survival stuff. And like I've said to you before, when I got really hard, I thought, wait, we have soldiers out here that are doing this shit, and people are trying to kill them. No one's trying to kill me. Matter of fact, they'll save me if I'm going to die. So I used that. I told myself every story I had to get through it. And at the end of the day, I just broke it down into get to the next checkpoint. One checkpoint at a time. Then I'd get there, and then I'd worry about the next one. And the whole time in my mind, I kept reminding myself that when I train like I've never won anything, that I've never won a race, that I'm not good. When I'm racing, I race like I can't lose. Like, I'm the best. These guys I'm gonna kill them. And I have to convince myself of this and keep that mindset that I'm the winner of this race. And anytime it gets tough, I have to think, I convince myself, hey, everyone's watching you to see how you react in this, and they're waiting to see weakness. And even if these were just stories I was telling myself, I genuinely believed this. Even though no one could see me, I was like, don't let them see you slip. Don't let them see you get weak. And whenever my mind would go there, I'd try to convince myself. And like I told you earlier, I would think about you guys, and I would think about my wife, and I'd think about the people in my life that I want to represent and make proud. And I'm like, I'm not going to let these people down and let anyone see us collectively slipping. And again, reality sometimes doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what you genuinely believe. And I've convinced myself that I'm a representative of all the people in my life.
Well, congratulations. You did a great job. You won the fight.
Thank you.
And it was really a fight. A fight.
Oh.
Obviously.
I'm so happy.
Every dimension of that word. Really great job. I'm glad you're still alive. I mean, some people, they probably got asked, what did you do when you out there in the desert, some of the other contestants that didn't win? And they probably said, I lived. I lived to tell the story. and you definitely not only lived to tell the story, you live to really, to triumph and tell the story. And again, as we try to do on this show, to teach, to talk about the fight in life, connect the dots. Everybody's fighting a fight. You don't have to go out and run a desert, but
that's right.
To go and do something you didn't do before.
You should. You should do something, though. You should be doing something. Before. Yeah.
Whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual.
Take piano lessons. Do something that makes you proud.
Something you didn't do before. Maybe you were afraid of doing before. Maybe it's to try out for something, for a team. If you're a kid in school, Maybe it's to try out for the drama class, that you love to be an actor, you love to be an actress, but you're afraid of getting up there on the stage and you don't want to do it, and you're afraid to try out for the drama, class or club, whatever it is. Try out for it. Don't have regrets. You can't fail if you try. You really can't. The only way you can really fail is if you don't make the attempt. Then you can fail, because
if you go for something and you don't make it, you can look at it as a failure, or you could look at it as a learning lesson and a teaching moment
can't really
and get better from there.
Try.
But you can't
fail if you try.
That's right.
Because you find out something you didn't know. And then that old saying,
right.
try again, then it gives you the confidence maybe that you need to do it better. But if you didn't initiate it, if you didn't take that first step in trying, then you are condemned to, it's like being in a solo cell, for life, where you're condemned to never knowing. That's an awful thing. That's a life sentence.
It reminds me of the poem "The Critic" by Teddy Roosevelt, "Man in the Arena." Where he talks about better to be the man in the arena covered in blood and dust than the critic in the stands who points his finger when the mighty man stumbles. I'd rather be in the arena getting beat up than just watching from the sidelines and poking fun. Just be out there trying in life. And the one highlight of the trip, though, even though it was really hard, every night at camp there were some really cool guys. There were a couple of journalists from Italy, really nice guy from Ireland. The Koreans were great. The Russians, of course, they wouldn't let the Russians wear the flags on their jersey, which I was just like, this is so crazy. We all had to wear our nationality flags. And they were like, yeah, they told us not to wear our flags. And I said, I get it, the whole Russia-Ukraine thing, but I mean, imagine if the whole world said the Americans can't wear their flag because you unjustly invaded Iraq on fake accusations of weapons of mass destruction. Like, the citizens of a country don't represent the government. I certainly am not represented by the decisions that the current administration makes at all. No. And to think that these guys, these citizens, are being punished for the actions of their government is such a freaking crime. It's just so out of line. Nevertheless, really nice guys. The Korean kids were unbelievable. It was just beautiful people, all supporting each other.
Congratulations. We're proud of you.
Thank you, Teddy.
We just added something to our audience, I hope, to their day. And, I'll leave it with this. To me, often, if you're just treading water, like in a pool, you're not going nowhere, but you're not sinking, right? You're treading water. To me, if you're treading water in life, and if you can have the wherewithal, the foresight, the ability to be that honest with yourself, to look within a little bit and see that, I'm in the same place I was yesterday, the same place I was the day before. The effort level is the same. That's why you're in the same place, by the way. You're treading water. I have a saying that if you're treading water in life, it is the first step towards drowning. It's just
That's right.
It's just a matter of when. Yeah, you know what I mean? You're not going under maybe at that minute, or maybe the next 5-10 minutes or whatever.
But you're not closer to the shore either.
No, but you are in the first stage of drowning. You don't know it.
You're just surviving.
But guess what? You will know it. You will know it. So the last thing I want to say, we missed last week. We put up the interview with the great, legendary Jerry Eisenberg, who is a legend. Hopefully people enjoyed that interview. We missed, obviously, some of the action that went on because we didn't do the podcast live. But we also didn't get a chance to say Happy Father's Day last week. So I just wanted to say, Ken, he spent a pretty unique Father's Day, in the desert. Not too many fathers will say they were in the desert for Father's Day. And I don't recommend it to anybody out there. But hope all the fathers had a good day. And I just wanted to say that we need more fathers. That's this country's biggest problem. Ken just made a statement about the current administration, other administrations, whatever. They don't control how you behave as a human being. They don't control your humanity. They don't control, who you are. They don't have a blueprint of what you need to be successful. You have to have that. You have to sort that out. And you have to be responsibility for your actions and who you are. And I just wanted to say that we need more fathers. I know there's a lot of problems in this world right now and in this country. But for me, we need more fathers. That's this country's biggest problem. No one talks about it. Why we have so many problems, in our society, in our communities, and I really feel that if you point it to one thing, we don't have enough real fathers. And I'm not talking about, men who can, create children. I'm talking about men who can raise children, teach children, develop children, nurture them into good people. That's what this country needs more, I think, of even more than lower gas prices or egg prices. I know that's a problem. I understand it, the economy, all those things, but we need fathers to be fathers. And we need more humanity. We need more care about each other. But if we had more fathers out there teaching us how to care about each other, how to move forward in life in a proper way, how to be responsible, I think we'd be in a hell of a lot better situation. Otherwise, we might wind up in the desert, and Ken won't be there because Ken would have already passed through that, and he's on to living. He's on to living life because he figured out what he had to figure out while there. So that's
my desert experience was one and done. Goodbye, never again.
Let's go on. Let's go. Let's do fights. Let's do.
Well, Teddy, speaking of Father's Day, Tim Tszyu, whose father, Costa Tszyu, was a legend. Tim was in action last week when we were off against Carlos Ocampo. Got bit by a dog on his arm like 23 days before few weeks before the fight. Required 26 stitches.
But it didn't matter with his opponent. Let me tell you, with his opponent, it didn't matter. But go ahead.
That's what I was going to get to. Was Tim Tszyu unbelievably good, or was the opponent terrible, considering he threw 17 punches, didn't land a single one, and Tim Tszyu knocked him out cold in 72 seconds? What did we learn from this, if anything, Teddy? Is Carlos Ocampo just not that good, or is Tim Tszyu a killer?
No, come on. I mean, both. It was a ridiculous mismatch. I like Tszyu. He's still a little raw around the edges, I think. And he got a little test in his fight before this with the kid, Tony Harrison, right? The former champion from Detroit. I like Harrison. I did some of his fights on ESPN years ago. I like the physicality of Tszyu. I like that he's developing. You still can catch him, where it'd be. I'd love to see him with like a Charlo. I don't know if that dance card is possible now that they're talking about possibly Charlo and Canelo. So obviously Charlo's not going to risk any fight. If he could get Canelo on a payday, that would be part of that. But I want to see Tszyu with better fighters. It's ridiculous mismatch. Ocampo threw a lazy left jab. One of the few punches you talked about that he threw, well, he would have been better off not throwing it because he threw a lazy left jab from too close as he was backing up straight, and he gets hit with a right hand. Then, also, all in the first round, and a slow jab, again from too close, and again, the window was open for a right hand to crash in like the frozen, like a frozen wind on a January night, and it froze Ocampo as he staggered back. Tszyu followed him. I mean, he followed a sitting duck with a left hook, just as easy as shooting fish in a barrel. You can't miss. Tszyu has, as I started to touch, has developed a good following. He's gotten better, He's still a work in progress. This is not in any way an indicator of how good or how whatever he is. He's ready. He's ready for, like he did with Tony Harrison. He's ready for another step after Tony Harrison. That was a good step. Now he's ready for another step. He's developed a good following in Australia. And that's all that fight really requires talking about.
Agreed. On to the next one from last week. Our friend, former guest of the pod, Regis Prograis, in action. Hometown fight in New Orleans at the Smoothie King Arena where the Pelicans play. He was in with Danielito Zorrilla, last-minute opponent. Regis didn't look his best. He looked to fight. Zorrilla looked to box. Regis chased him around the ring most of the fight. He did enough to get the split decision win. I think Regis was honest in his assessment after the fight, said he knows he didn't look his best. He copped to the fact that it was a lot more pressure fighting at home than he had expected. He didn't look great. There's no way around it. I think he can do better, but he got the win, retains the WBC title, in line to maybe fight a Gervonta Davis or a Devin Haney next, they're saying. But not a great performance from him, but he did what he had to do to stay busy. I didn't get the impression that he was super pumped for this fight or motivated. I know you can't take that attitude. When you're a champion, you have to take everyone seriously, but looked like maybe the between the last-minute opponent not being that motivated and the hometown fight might have got to him a little, but no excuses. Didn't look that good. How'd you like it?
No, he didn't look good at all, and his stock dropped because his stock had really risen high where he was being thought of as one of the, elite guys, and it took a drop from that.
Could motivate some of these top guys to want. To want to get in there and think that they got an easy pickings.
He was being thought on in that really elite level, and now people are wondering. But I don't think it's.
And he's got the WBC title, so you got to think everyone wants to get in there now with him.
It doesn't, of course. People are salivating to certain degrees in those areas, but I don't think it's got to do so much where being up or not being up or being at home. Those things can create emotional distractions, emotional lulls and highs and lows, peaks and lows, where it can dampen one's performance. It can hinder, compromise. There's no doubt about that. It happens. But this was different. This, for me, from my trainer's lens, was about technique. It was about what he has to work on in the gym, where he's got to really work on certain things, which, quite frankly, I pointed out to him when I had given him a little help setting up a fight plan for him before he fought for the title, the title that he just had won. Where he stopped, I can't remember the guy he won the title from, but obviously it was before the Zorrilla fight. And you could probably look it up and see who it was, a Mexican fighter that he beat.
Who Regis beat? Is it Jose Zepeda?
Yeah, Zepeda. Yeah. And I had talked to him and given him a little help about, or at least my thought that it would be possibly helpful with a fight plan for that fight. And, and he fought a good fight in that fight. Some people might say he's never looked as good as he looked in a losing effort in a close fight to Josh Taylor. And
that's right.
And Taylor since has not looked too good, to be quite honest. And then he's lost since then. But Regis, I felt that it was technical flowings coming back that he got away with to a certain point, and they were shown more. They were highlighted a little bit more, and they came back to kind of give him problems in this fight. Where the first thing I want to say is De La Hoya had sent out a tweet mocking Eddie Hearn for putting on a bad or stink of a show in this fight, and it was not a good show. It was a snooze fest. It was not a good fight. There's no getting around that. We wouldn't have the reputation we have if we tried to get around that, nor would we deserve it.
You have to laugh a little when De La Hoya is making fun of anyone. This guy's
the point I'm making is that there's no doubt it was not an interesting fight to watch. But for De La Hoya to set out a tweet mocking Eddie Hearn, for putting on a stinker of a show, saying he's a horrible promoter and he should stay in the UK. It's, first of all, it's ridiculous. But you scratch your head, for me at least, saying, why does Oscar seek out this kind of nonsense and attacking of people on social media, which he's been making quite a habit of, whether it's with Dana White or Ryan,
including his own fighters,
or Ryan
his
Garcia,
own fighters,
whoever.
Guy's an idiot.
For me, somebody should maybe read him that old saying that I don't know if he's ever heard of it, but it's one that maybe makes some sense for him to read, where people who live in glass houses should not throw stones. And just kind of leave it alone. But it was, I had to mention that. But look, it was a snooze fest. Prograis' performance was disappointing. I already said that in a way that I'm sure a lot of people, like you said, will be anxious to get in there with him. Now, he truly needs to work on things that I just touched on from a technical standpoint in the gym. And I made a list.
Let me ask you this, Teddy.
I made a list.
Teddy,
I'm going to lay it out. I'm going to lay it out because it's very simple. What I think that he needs to do, that I think that the things that need to be on that list of things he has to work on. He's a good fighter. We know that. He's a champion, two-time champion. But at this point, from what I saw, what he continually did wrong in the fight, from my lens, was it was three basic things. You were making head movements from too far out. Simple thing like that. Now, a lot of people don't pick up on that because they don't even know. I'll be honest. There's not a lot of teachers out there. There's not.
That's a good point.
And but if you're making head movements from too far away, you're allowing your opponent now, where he knows he's safe, he can be relaxed, he knows you're too far to hit him, and he can see your movement and he can time your head movements. So that's number one. Number two, you got to be closer when you make those head movements. Close enough to draw the punch and then be in position to throw something back. Number two, he was throwing single jabs from too far out with no chance of landing. You need to get closer, step in with the jab, and at times, depending on your range, double up the jab, and then you have to do something off the jab instead of only the jab. And see, well, especially in this fight, it was so pronounced. Stop following an opponent around the ring all night. Learn how to cut down the ring. And the first round, as far as my analysis on the fight, that's it. But the first round, Prograis was kind of lucky the ref did not properly score what looked like a legitimate knockdown by Zorrilla. Then in the third round, Prograis did score a knockdown, which looked like it was partly because their feet, maybe, a southpaw and an orthodox fighter, their feet got mixed up, a little tangled. But at the end of the day, the punch landed, but it was not impactful. It was not a effective punch. Zorrilla, in all fairness, see, I get down to absolutes, not just about, well, maybe this, maybe that. Zorrilla had a hard style to look good with. First of all, he keeps his chin up in the air like a lantern in a storm, which you're dying to hit it because it's inviting. It's almost teasing you. But he controls range with his legs, stepping out of distance, and in spots pot shotting or looking to pot shot or just sneak in a straight right hand against the southpaw Regis, and that's what you're looking for, right hands against the southpaw. Zorrilla was mostly defensive, except some of the late rounds. And yes, Prograis pressed the fight all night, but it was cautious aggression and for the most part ineffective. Because of the things I just said, he never properly closed the gaps because he didn't step in behind the jab to get close enough. And he did not go to the body of Zorrilla enough. Zorrilla was moving around, using his legs. No better way to take some air out of the tires than to go downstairs and bang to that body. I was surprised, really, that he didn't do more of that. The fight, to really put more emphasis on, why De La Hoya, felt that he could take a shot at him, which he shouldn't, but take a shot at the fight, that it was obviously not an exhilarating fight. It broke punch stat record for the ineptitude in punch output, a new low of punches in a fight. So the final say on this, there were many just non-substantial rounds on both sides. Just nothing happening. But Ken, we're trying to get a national commission where we got that petition still up for people to sign. I don't know how many say we got 9,000, 10,000, whatever it is. We want to keep going because we're going to bring that to Congress to get a national commission to clean up the sport with the judging and with the referee and all that, and the people that every week in and week out fans are complaining about some reason to complain that a judge did this, a referee did that wrong, and I think the right guy won the fight because you can't give a title, you can't take a title away, I wouldn't at least, to a guy like Zorrilla who's really not trying to win it enough. Where the other guy is at least pressing a fight, the champion's pressing a fight, and Zorrilla's mostly concentrating on surviving and then picking some spots late on. Okay, but I can't. In the kind of fight that it broke down to be, where I said there was a lot of non-eventful rounds, you just can't give it to a guy who's being more non-eventful than the other guy, who's just not trying to take chances. So at the end of the day, they got the right decision. But it was crazy. For me, two judges had it huge for Prograis. Again, too many of those rounds, like nothing was happening. I don't see how you could have it huge for anybody. And yes, like I said, it'd be difficult to give the title to Zorrilla, who, just didn't fight enough or take any chances to earn the belt. But to make it lopsided for Prograis, again, it doesn't help with what's going on out there as far as trying to have credibility and belief in these judges. And then to have another judge where you have two lopsided for Prograis, and then you got the other judge gives it to Zorrilla. All right, you got a split decision. But when you hear split decision, you would want to assume that means that all the scores are fairly close. Not that two of them are like huge and then the other one is close. So, again, just another bad night for the referee who missed some knockdowns, who might have given a wrong knockdown, to the judges that had it just ridiculous scores. That, again, it's just more ammo, more cannon fodder for fans to say this sport's full of crap. This sport, the administrators of this sport, I've had enough. I can't watch no more. I love the fighters. I love them getting in the ring and, them being what they are and finding out who's better and teaching us all, about going to places that you never went to before and finding out exactly what you can find in those places, how good you can be, how, like you in the desert, you got to a point where it just simply came down to finding a way. It wasn't about plan. It wasn't about a blueprint. It wasn't about anything other than I got to find a way. I got to find a way to freaking get through this desert and do what I came here to. Well, that's what people watch fights for, to see fighters get to the point where sometimes they just got to find a way, and they teach us how to find a way. And then you got these judges that take away from all that. So really, they become a debilitating part of the sport. They become a distraction. So I had to say that. We also had a UFC fight. You want to tee that up? That was Vettori and Cannonier.
One quick question, though. Regarding Prograis, I mean, everyone kind of has the same narrative, right? He didn't look great. And I wonder if a fighter, if in their mind, they might actually start hearing this and start to believe it. If you're the trainer, how do you put that fire out right now and say, no, never mind the bullshit. We had a bad fight. We're going to put it behind us. Let's think about how we looked against Josh Taylor and build on that.
It's not a complicated question. It's not one of those questions that has a whole column of possible answers. You know what I mean? Where you got multiple choices. There's no multiple choices in this business with that kind of stuff. It's simple. Go to the gym. If you're the trainer that trainers need to be, and I'm sure he is, go to the gym and freaking first go to the gym, watch the tape with him, and say, okay, we're going to correct this, and this, starting today. That's it. That's my career. I made a career that way. Look at tape, say, okay, you moved from too far away. We're correcting that today. Okay, you threw one jab at a time from too far away. There's nobody there. What are you doing? Shadowboxing? There's nobody there. We're going to correct that. Okay, you followed him around. You didn't cut the ring. We're going to correct that. Bang. In the gym. All right, this is what we got. And you work on it every day until you get it.
Perfect. Teddy, you mentioned it earlier, but one of the things that I carried with me for 150 miles was a daily supply of Athletic Greens, #1 sponsor of the fight with Teddy Atlas. Go to athleticgreens.com/Atlas. Use the promo code Atlas, ATLAS, and you'll get 10 of these free travel packs that I carried all the way across the desert, not for show,
They were light.
Not for money.
Were light. Now, look, he did a lot of great things.
Yes, they
but
are.
They're light. They
are, but every ounce matters, and every ounce of that you carry that isn't food could be deadly. Like I said, I was operating on a 7,500 calorie deficit on a daily basis. I lost 12 pounds.
Thank God you had that.
So before anyone tells me I look skinny and terrible,
I know
please
one
know
thing.
I'm trying to gain the weight back quickly.
I know one thing. You would have thrown away your sleeping bag you were carrying before you throw those away. I know that.
100%. Yeah, your diet has to be dialed in.
That might be why you wound up in a tent. That might be why you wound up in a tent with 3 women. Because you. All right.
The funny thing is, when I first walked in, the girls wanted to kick me out, and by the end, they were like happy to be in there with me. We had a great time. But Athletic Greens made from 75 whole food source ingredients, easy peasy. Mix it in about 8 to 10 ounces of water. Drink it down first thing in the morning. You can't go wrong. And the thing I forgot to show you, Teddy, is as a result of the win, look at the trophy I got.
Let me see. All right. What does
big giant silver platter? Yeah. You could tell if you tell me there's a plastic trophy for the winner of any event like the 10K that we did, Rob and I won up in the Hall of Fame. There's a plastic trophy for the winner. I'm gonna stab you in the neck to win it. I want that trophy.
What does it say? Does it say anything on it?
It says 250 kilometers in the 250 kilometers in the footsteps of Genghis Khan, Gobi March. Overall winner, Ken Rideout.
Wow, that's great.
That's it, baby.
Congratulations, that's tremendous. All right.
So please check out athleticgreens.com/Atlas. Get your 10 free travel packs. On to the UFC. Jared Cannonier bounces back after his loss to Israel Adesanya. He batters Martin Vettori. Good battle, both trying to throw big shots, content to stand up early in the fight. Jared Cannonier gets the unanimous decision. How'd you like that one?
Well, you touched it with one word. I mean, it really covers most of the fight, at least 4 rounds of it. Vettori took a brutal beating, and he did it. And he survived because he has a granite chin, or maybe it's a plutonium one. I don't know. But it's one of the greatest.
These guys are so tough.
It's one of the greatest chins I've ever seen. And, man, Cannonier is so physically strong. He's built that way. He's so well-muscled, great shape, and he's 39 years old. I mean, he's pretty extraordinary. He's a really good, solid puncher who's always set with his feet under him to deliver power punches, and he does. And although he's mainly a striker, he did a nice job of mixing it up a little in the 4th and 5th round to get some takedowns, which I was pretty impressed with that. Except for the first round, which Cannonier lost, Vettori won that first round. He shook him twice with straight left hands. Vettori's a southpaw. He caught him with his power punch, straight left hands behind the ear. That's hard to overcome when you get hit behind the ear and throws off your equilibrium. Well, Cannonier was fighting in his unnatural southpaw stance. He turned southpaw for whatever reasons. And he was, of course, fighting against the natural southpaw. That's probably why he turned southpaw. He wanted to mix it up, confuse Vettori a little bit, and come out in the southpaw stance, give him a mirror image of himself. But it didn't work well for him in that first round because he ate the left hands. But to show you what I always talk about with these guys, Ken, we already know how tough they are, how physical they are. But the top ones, they got to be smart. They got to be smart. He made an adjustment, in the second round. I guess it wasn't hard to make that adjustment. You got cracked in the freaking chin and behind the ear, really, with straight left standing as a southpaw when you're naturally not a southpaw. I guess it makes sense to switch back to orthodox, right? So he did. But a lot of people, I was thinking about that. Marvin Hagler turned southpaw turned orthodox, from his southpaw, his natural southpaw position. One of the greatest southpaws of all time, maybe the greatest middleweight of all time, definitely one of them, and one of my favorite fighters of all time. Hagler switched orthodox for the first several rounds against Leonard, and a lot of people thought he gave away those rounds, and he should have switched back, but a lot of people thought he was too proud, too stubborn. He made up his mind he was going to beat him that way, or at least use that stance to beat him for part of the fight, or to create a lead for himself, or to create a situation where he threw Leonard off by being orthodox instead of southpaw. But a lot of people felt that he stayed in that orthodox position just too long, when it wasn't really giving him an edge, and that it cost him with the scorecards at the end. And that's one thing that Cannonier, right away, I noticed he didn't let that happen. He obviously had a plan to turn southpaw, but once he saw it wasn't working, bang, he switched back to orthodox, and he no longer was wide open defensively for the left hands. Plus, it was something else too to it. It set up his right hand now against the southpaw, Vettori, where southpaws are quite often available to right hands, and I call it the southpaw killer. So it was really smart on Cannonier's part, with Vettori, where he suddenly switched back, and now all night long he was finding a home against Vettori with right hands. And he came close to stopping Vettori in the second round, which had to be a 10-8 round. I didn't look at the scorecards because he beat him up. And it was just amazing, the heart, and like I said, just the survival abilities of Vettori to survive some of those attacks. Cannonier also controlled the third and the fourth round. Like I said, he used some takedowns, mixed it up a little bit, he dominated every round other than the first round. He controlled the third, the fourth, the fifth. The second, of course, was dominant. Like I said, dominated all the way through except the first round. Made that adjustment after really a shaky first round. Very impressive for me by the 39-year-old Cannonier. I just wanted to be sure that I gave him his due, and hopefully I just did because, again, 39 years old, very impressive if he was 29, but on top of it, 39.
God, yeah, definitely. This week in the UFC, Ilia Topuria in with Josh Emmett. Again, these guys, the UFC delivers week after week after week. Ilia Topuria gets the unanimous decision over the ever tough Josh Emmett. Unanimous decision, looked to be one-sided. How'd you like it?
Yeah, again, one-sided. I mean, the first thing that I took away, and I sent out a tweet about this with my great tweeting team, where Webster's dictionary should save a little bit of space and some words by just putting up Emmett's picture for the definition of the word tough. I mean, really, just put his picture up next to tough and people will understand. Got it. All right, I know what that is. Emmett's 38 years old and Topuria was 26 years old, 12 years older. Emmett was. First round, close, and as it turned out, really the only close round. A little bit very similar in some ways to the fight that I just described from last week, with Cannonier and Vettori. First round close, only close round, although in the fifth round, Topuria mostly, I think, protected his lead and made sure he didn't get reckless. But Topuria, he reminds me with his striking a little of Volkanovski, where he's so solid technically, he's so buttoned up with his approach, his overall approach, that it just reminded me of him a little bit. Emmett's strategy early on was to use his legs to move laterally, keeping Topuria from getting set, trying to do that. While he was also looking for spots to pot shot at Topuria. With punches, then, of course, get out of dodge, move a little bit again. He was trying to outbox Topuria, who was pressing the fight in a very patient, deliberate way, looking to place accurate punches. Topuria was always in control. Never ahead of himself, never got reckless. Like I said, he's a technically solid, buttoned-up striker who has good timing, uses his jab very well to set up punches and to control range while stabilizing his opponent with his jab on the outside. Topuria dominated the rounds after the first. And only Emmett's great heart, again, similar to what I described with Vettori, where Emmett's great heart and toughness and experience kept him around. It was pretty extraordinary, the one round that he survived. And it allowed him to go the distance. While Topuria was calm, collected, he forced Emmett to work a lot harder at a much faster pace to stay in the fight, expending a lot of energy and gas. While Topuria was cautiously aggressive, he was always looking for counters. Did some real good countering, in there. When Topuria throws, he makes everything count. He doesn't throw something just to throw it. He doesn't waste anything. Grandmothers out there would love to invite him to a dinner table because he doesn't waste a damn thing. You know how your grandmothers are, don't leave Don't leave any peas. Don't leave that spinach. You got to finish. You got to finish. You can't waste anything. He does not waste a damn thing. He reminds me in boxing. I talked about reminding me of Volkanovski in MMA. He reminds me a little bit of Inoue, the undefeated world champion from Japan. Always set in position to deliver his punches. The only chance that Emmett really had after 3 rounds, because after 3 rounds it was pretty much over, but it wasn't over for Emmett. I mean, he never stopped trying. But the only chance really Emmett had from that point on was to land a big right hand. And that meant Topuria would have to make a mistake, get reckless. But he didn't. Except there was one spot, Ken, where Topuria led. I always talk about that. You should not lead with a left hook in front of somebody because you leave an opening for a straight right to get in there first. And there was one spot where Topuria did. He led with a left hook in front of Emmett, and Emmett tried like hell to time him with a straight right, and he just missed. But here's the thing. After that, Topuria tightened it up, and he went into a little bit of a prevent D, and he never got careless again. Never made that mistake again. Very impressive. And also, Topuria dropped Emmett late in the fight with a beautiful short left hook after his right hand. And it was a perfect example of why trainers will often teach you to finish with the left hook, or like the old timers would say to me, clean up with the left hook. You throw the right hand, clean up with the left hook, come back with. He came back with the left hook, the right hand set it up, and it was beautiful. It like I said, it dropped Emmett. Also, Topuria landed some damaging leg kicks. I had to put that in there. Similar to what Dustin Poirier did to Conor McGregor in their rematch, just so that Emmett couldn't set himself. It was a well thought out fight plan and well executed by Topuria, who was very impressive. He's undefeated. This guy is going to be hard to beat because he's good. He doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't beat himself. He does not beat himself. Like I said, a very smart, controlled, efficient fight by Topuria. He was the boss all night. And this fight man right here appreciated it and was very impressed.
Yeah, agreed. Let's move over to this weekend's boxing. Edgar Berlanga in action in New York, hometown fight for him against Jason Quigley, the veteran. Berlanga scores the unanimous decision. The scorecards were 116-108 twice, 118-106. This is the fight that Oscar was very critical of Eddie with. This is one of them. Berlanga didn't look as good as he's always looked. He did move to 21-0. I should footnote that he's always looked good because he hasn't been in there with the toughest competition. Quigley was definitely a step up from what he's been in with. But nevertheless, he gets the win, knocks him down late in the last round a few times, and gets the win. He's calling for some better opponents now. What'd you think of that? Did Berlanga do anything to raise his stock here, or did he do just enough to get the win?
Listen, people will probably be down on him because that's part of the decision you make when you're going to build these guys up. He was a very good amateur, very experienced amateur, Berlanga. He's from New York, and, you build him up like they build everyone up. No different than any of the other guys. If you're with one of the top promoters, you get the ability, the privilege, whatever you want to call it, to be built up. If you're not with that silver spoon in your mouth, if you're one of those guys that don't have a top promoter, didn't have a great amateur career, whatever, you got to do it the hard way. First guy comes to mind again, Marvin Hagler. He did it the hard way. He did it, he didn't have like Sugar Ray Leonard, who he fought in his last fight of his career, which I think he always was a little resentful of, not as a fighter. I mean, he respected Leonard, but that he got, and Leonard made the most of it. Leonard earned it. Leonard won a gold medal in the Olympics when the Olympics were much better than they are now. I don't even know if we're going to have boxing in the Olympics anymore because the powers that be screwed that up. The IOC, AIBA, they finally got rid of them. Corrupt organization.
AIBA's been kicked out.
Yep, they got kicked out.
Imagine the governing body gets kicked out of the Olympics. That isn't a sign of corruption.
I called for Olympics and I called for them to get kicked out years ago. They didn't do it right away. I wound up.
Teddy, you were calling for that in 2012. It's 2023, for Christ's sakes. 11 years. We already know that what they did in 2012 was corrupt with, Azerbaijan fighters allegedly paying bribes to get wins. It's a disgrace.
So they called for me and my partner, Bob Papa, who really should be doing more boxing again because he's probably
he's great.
He's the best one out there, but or as good as anyone, if not better. But we called out the corruption. What do we get for it? I never got asked to come back and do an Olympics because...
What did you get for it? They didn't even let you sit ringside anymore. They sent you to the broom closet to call the fights on a video monitor. If that isn't insulting, I don't know what is.
Well, and I finished the job, and I did. After 2 weeks of calling 278 fights with Bob Papa and AIBA and Dr. Wu, which pissed me off because... he didn't have the right to have doctor in front of him because that for me, with my father being who he was, a real doctor, that is an honorable title. And people that are dishonorable and corrupt like Wu should never have had it. Never. And I told him that in my face-to-face. Maybe that's why he removed me from ringside, or part of why. Because every night, me and Bob were exposing the corruption that was going on. And I asked, they wanted me to finish up in this little broom closet, me and Bob, to finish up the last 2 days for the medal matches after all that was invested into 2 weeks of calling all those fights. They wanted us to finish up in a little, in a little studio. And I wound up, I could have said no. And I said yes. And I asked the president at that time, Dick Ebersol, had just stepped down. If it was Ebersol, he would have kept his word. This freaking guy never kept his word. I said, look, I'll do it. I know you want me to do it. I'll do it, and I'll finish it up. But you got to give me your word that you're going to get the IOC to investigate AIBA as soon as these Olympics are over and get rid of them because of what's going on. Because
it only took 11 years.
They're destroying this sport. Well, he gave his word. He shook my hand. I went, kept my word with Bob Papa. We caught the rest of the Olympics, the 2 days, the silver and gold medal matches. He never kept his word. He broke his word. And you know what? He's the reason why there might never be any more amateur boxing in the Olympics, because if he kept his word and he did the investigation or insisted on an investigation with the IOC, they may have cleaned up in time where the sport would not have destroyed itself to the level that it did and the loss of credibility to the level that was lost, where now it's truly in danger, where NBC doesn't even send people like me anymore to location to call the fights. They do it from New York. They do it from a studio now remotely, which takes away from the whole sport and the whole delivery of the sport. And it's hurt itself so that a sport that's been around longer than any other sport other than track, any other sport, is no longer maybe going to be in the Olympics because of these bums, because of their corruption, and again, because they didn't investigate it when they had a chance to investigate it and maybe save the sport. And something that's so important to fighters that want to represent their country. They might never have a chance to do that again in the way that they should and that they did for all those years in the Olympics. So anyway, I just get mad when I think about it. And but getting back to Hagler and the difference between, being a star with a promoter and not. Here's a guy that went and fought all the fighters in Philadelphia, all the middleweights. They had the best middleweights during his tenure in Philly. Nobody wanted to fight them. It didn't make sense to fight them and take a chance because you could get beat. Guess what Hagler did? He fought him, and he got beat by a couple. And then he beat him, and then he fought him again, and he beat him. And he beat him in the rematch. And he got not only to the title, but he got to where he was one of the greatest fighters of all time. So you could do it either way. He did it that way. Now, guys like Sugar Ray Leonard, who won the 1976 Olympics with, I think, the greatest Olympic team of all time, where we had five Olympic champions back in those days, where, I mean, it was Cuba were monsters. The Soviet Union was still around. You had to beat really good fighters. And Leonard beat a monster. He beat a Cuban. Stopped him. I mean, the guy was like a legend in the amateurs. And Leonard did it. But Leonard also got the spoils of victory. Where he got signed up. He got, big money at the beginning. Fighting on network television. Hagler didn't get any of that. And look, Leonard earned it. He deserved it. And he proved himself to be the real deal, going and winning the world titles that he won and being for me, one of the greatest fighters I've ever seen. But Hagler did it the other way. They're doing the same thing with Berlanga, where they're giving him, and I shouldn't say the same, because with Leonard, even De La Hoya, for all his nuttiness, he was a good fighter. And when he came up, he fought good fighters early on.
He was great.
But he fought good fighters. He didn't just fight raw meat. He didn't just fight cannon fodder. He fought good fighters early on, coming up. And so did Leonard, because they were good enough. And these promoters nowadays, again, it's the same blueprint. You build the guy up, you get him to a fat record, then you get a title, and you build up the audience. You get the network that's behind you to be excited because you have a guy who's 20-0, 25-0, 16-0 with all knockouts or a lot of knockouts. I get it, but the difference here is Berlanga wasn't given, and a lot of these guys, same thing with Top Rank. All these, they're building up with nothing but raw meat. And it's not making them get better. And they're just building their record. They're making their record fat, but they're not making themselves better. They're not being challenged to get better. And what happens is when you step them up a little bit, they don't look good because you suddenly go from the wading pool, from the shallow end to the ocean. And all of a sudden you say, oh, that guy's not as good a swimmer as I thought he was. In the wading pool, he looked like Mark Spitz. He looked like a great swimmer. But in the ocean, my God, he don't look so damn good because they didn't give him a chance to go out into the deep end before going to go into a little deeper waters. And that's kind of what the problem has been with Berlanga, and you're going to see the same thing with the guys on ESPN, all these guys. They build him up. The announcers say, oh, my God, he's great. He's the greatest thing since sliced bread, since Coca-Cola, since everything. And why? Because he's beating a guy that was put there for one reason, to get beat and to get knocked out. Why? Give him a chance. Give him a chance to learn. Give him a chance to really show that he is that good. So Berlanga, early on, they give him all these easy fights. You were wrong about one thing, Ken, that he hadn't fought anybody his last few fights. No, the last few fights, the reason why he didn't get knockouts, he stepped up. Not great, but he did step up. And I think what happened was, again, people were like, oh, he's not that good now because he's not knocking guy. No, the other opponents was so bad that anyone, with any ability would knock them out. And now he's fighting better guys and he's developing, and there's going to be a couple, you're going to burp a little bit. There's going to be a couple hiccups where he's going to have to develop a little bit. And people lose patience. They say, oh, no, he's not knocking guys out. He's not that good. And they start to get down on him. And the fighter himself gets down, where I think Berlanga lost a little of his confidence a little bit. And he started And you touched on it. He started questioning himself. You talked about it with the Prograis and with different things. He started questioning himself a little bit. And I'll tell you, this was a step up for him. Not a huge step, but Quigley was a step up in experience and ability. And people, I've heard a lot of people down on Berlanga. I thought that he's looking better. I thought, and people can take their shots at me. I don't give a damn. I know what I saw. I thought that he had shown me improvement. I thought that he was better than he had been in some of his previous fights. I thought that the switch back to his old trainer probably helped him. Maybe not in the corner because his trainer was going nuts, but he looked better. He looked a little more developed than the guy that he had left his old trainer to, I forget the guy's name, Rosier, whatever, that he was. I thought he looked better here technically. I thought that I thought there was craziness the whole night in the commentary and everything. And I'll tell you what that craziness. One of the commentators kept talking like Quigley was dominating, like he was killing Berlanga, like he was winning. And I'm watching, I'm saying, I don't know if he's got stock in Quigley. I don't know if he had an argument with Berlanga. Maybe Berlanga did something to him and should apologize if he's ever going to fight on their network again, so he doesn't.
Well, I know it wasn't Joe. Joe
no,
Tess,
so
one hypes up a A-side fighter like Tess.
It was on the DAZN, and I just
DAZN, yeah,
I don't know. Again, I don't know if the guy he did something wrong to him, whatever, but it really got to the point where I was like, I'm watching a different fight here, because Berlanga don't look that bad early on to me. He was taking his time. He was being patient, maybe too patient in spots, but he was being patient. So he wasn't just that guy that he had been, where he's just going out there and throwing a punch and the guy disappears. He was trying to be responsible. He was trying to do it the right way with a better fighter. And I thought his left hand looked a little better. He didn't use it enough. He didn't jab enough. He could have doubled it up more. But when he used it and when he hooked off it and he uppercutted off, he went to the body off, I thought he did a little bit more. I thought that there were spots where he looked like he was developing and getting better. But then the other craziness was the commentator making it really sound like Quigley's dominating. And then all of a sudden the same commentator says, yeah, I got Berlanga winning. And I'm like, you just talked for the last 5 rounds about how Quigley's great and sensational and as sharp as you ever saw him, and now you got Berlanga winning? I'm confused. I was waiting for Rod Sterling to take over the booth and say, you're welcome to the Twilight Zone. You are now in the Twilight Zone, because I felt like I was in the freaking Twilight Zone. And then you go to the corner, and the corner of Berlanga, the trainer is berating him early on. And I'm like, wow, what are you, but I'm tough in the corner too when I have to be. But why are you berating the guy? I don't think he's doing that bad. And he's berating him. And then Berlanga went from looking confident, looking like he was going to do pretty damn good early on, which I thought he was, to where he got hesitant. I won't deny it. He got a little hesitant. He was thinking too much, and I started thinking maybe it's connected to the corner, because he's been berated, beat down so much in the corner that he's losing a little of his confidence here. And then the corner turned it around. Again, welcome to the Twilight Zone. Rod Sterling. Ladies and gentlemen, you are now stepping into the Twilight Zone. Suddenly his corner started being positive. His corner started actually giving him productive advice, started actually giving him instructive advice. And he looked better. And he had a real good finish, a big finish. I don't know what the scorecards, he might have even needed it. I don't know. But he had a real good finish. He almost stopped Quigley at the end. And again, I actually thought that Berlanga reminds me of Munguia. It's funny because that's De La Hoya's fight. But he reminds me a little of Munguia. Munguia was very raw, still a little raw, very raw around the edges, green behind the ears, and he needed to develop. He needed development fights after giving him the freebies that they all get, right? The quick, the easy ones. And he got a little bit of an easy spot for a title. He beat Saddam Ali, who never should have been in the ring with him. He was too small. He was a welterweight in there with a middleweight. I think it was that junior middleweight, but Munguia was a middleweight. That's right. Basically was a middleweight. And he was just too big for him. And it was just bad management by the father of Saddam Ali. And Ali was an Olympian. He's a good fighter, but he just shouldn't have been in the ring with him. So anyway, Munguia dominates that fight. He stops Ali. He's got a title now, but he's still green. A lot of people be saying, but Teddy, he's got a title. I know, but he's still a work in progress. Even though he has a title, he's still work. And I've seen development with him. I've seen improvement with Munguia. I don't think he beats a half-shot Derevyanchenko. And Derevyanchenko is half-shot. He's a little past himself, no doubt about it. But I don't think he beats Derevyanchenko, who's been in with everybody, if Munguia didn't improve over the last 2 years or the last year and a half. He showed me improvement. He's still a work in progress. He still has to continue to develop and get better. And that's how I look at Berlanga. Berlanga, I know they'll throw names around. Triple G, all right, he's, 80 years old now? Okay, whatever, that's fine. But they got to be careful. Keep taking little steps up, but the right steps. Take another step up, but one where you don't get ahead of yourself. You don't put them in with a big puncher. You don't put him in a danger place because he's not quite developed. I think he's going to get there. I think Berlanga, for all the detractors, all the people that are down on him, they don't see it the way I see it. He's improving. Let him keep improving. Now he's getting the fights he really needs that he maybe should have had earlier. It's okay. Let him continue to improve. The problem now is everyone wants the big fight now because, he's 20-0, 21, whatever. Okay, now you got to fight the big fight. No, resist that. If you have Berlanga, resist that. Triple G, that's a big name. Good, that's fine because he's old and you could do that. But pick the right guy and give him a chance to continue to make headway the way he's making it now, where he's getting better. I think he needs a couple more of those type fights. Just a couple, maybe 2 or 3. And then he has a chance to reach the potential that you signed them to reach when you signed them up. So,
yeah. By the way, I knew that fight was on the zone. I was being sarcastic because whenever I think of Tess, I think of him like calling every A-side fighter like it's Ali Frazier. It's just so much excitement and enthusiasm that it becomes like the boy that cried wolf. What do you do when you get a really like top level fight? There's no there's no newness there. There's no originality. You've already given away all your best lines to like the fight that no one cares about on a random night.
And do you really believe it?
Upstate
do you
New
really
York.
believe? I mean, you got to be a little honest. Is there any honesty out there anymore? Where if you're fighting a guy that was delivering Dairy Queen the day before to your kids, and now the day before he's ringing the bell, and I love to hear that bell. My grandchildren get all excited. Dairy Queen! Oh, it's Carvel! The truck is out there, and they run out. Yeah, and then you find out that the guy who was giving you the soft cone, right? Or maybe
he's got only vegetables today.
No, worse than that. All of a sudden he's in a ring. He's in a ring with one of these undefeated freaking prospects, and then you know, and then you don't see the Dairy Queen guy for a week. Where's the Dairy Queen guy? He got the crap beat out of him. I mean, he got sick. He got the flu. He got the flu.
It wasn't. To catch a beating.
It wasn't the ice cream. The ice cream wasn't bad. No. It had nothing to do with ice cream. He'll be out of the hospital. I mean, he'll be back in about a week. He'll be back. You might not recognize him. But he'll be back doing ice cream again, which is what he should be doing instead of being in the ring with an undefeated opponent. That's the problem. Yep. Where you're a commentator and you supposed to know who the guy is dismantling, who the guy is destroying, and you shouldn't get over the top with that because it's not being honest.
Exactly.
It's like you're howling for your meal. It's like you're howling to keep your job. Yeah, it's like you're trying to pretend. You're trying to pretend something's better than it is. Like you think you got to build it up.
Bruce Buffer giving his best screaming announcement for a prize fight. But for the second fight of the night, you gotta save something for the ones that really matter.
Hey, listen, Buffer can do it. You know why? Because every fight UFC, every fight in the UFC is a competitive fight. Every fight.
No, my point is, Buffer doesn't bring out jump and jiu-jitsu moves for every fight. Only the main events, and then again, it has some effect.
You're right. Well, it has effect because he can do that because it's not over the top. The reason it's not is because it's deserving, because it's legitimate, because you're going to have a highly contested fight on both sides. You're going to have two qualified opponents in there, two qualified fighters in there. But that's not the case where these commentators, the guy you're talking about, where they go over what's disingenuous about it is that they're trying to sell the public that this is better than it is. And you know where they make their mistake? Besides being phony about it. But you know where they make their real mistake? They make their mistake, Ken.
Where?
They don't give the audience credit for having a brain, for being intelligent. That the audience can see what it is and what it isn't. The audience can see that, hey, this doesn't deserve that kind of screaming. This is not a challenge here. This is a guy that was just put in there to build up the guys. Okay, let's get past it. I get it, and let's go on to the next fight. Hopefully, a competitive one. But don't insult my intelligence
Speaking of moving on, Julian Williams, our friend, former guest of the show, in tough against Carlos Ocampo.
One thing let me just finish one thing. Berlanga, for the people that are going to say, oh, well, listen, he got caught some clean shots in a couple of spots. As it wasn't perfect, but as I said, I thought he looked good early, seemed to get a little hesitant where he could have used the jab more, put punches together more at times instead of one at a time, no doubt about it. But you could also see, like I said, he was consciously trying to be smarter and more responsible with a better level of fighter and not get careless looking for just, for one shot. The other thing that I made a note, the commentator also in Twilight Zone, the commentator had said that he was surprised early on that Berlanga didn't look bigger than Quigley. And I thought I was watching a different TV set, Ken, because I thought Berlanga looked much bigger. Much bigger. Matter of fact, I tweeted, I think it was in the second or third round, I tweeted that Berlanga was too big, too young, and too strong, and too confident for Quigley. In the end, he was. In the end. He had to get to the end, but he was. But again, it was a weird night. But with the commentating in the corner screaming at him, and then being better towards him later on, it made for a lot of strangeness. But as I said, my advice to the management now is it's all about the choices of opponents. It's going to be crucial for Berlanga to continue to get better. So that's it.
That's it. All right, cool. Like I said, Carlos Adames gets the TKO in the 9th against our friend Julian Williams, J-Rock, former guest of the show. With his trainer, they had some choice words for the referee after the fight. I thought the stoppage was pretty bad. All 3 judges had Adames up in the fight. Let me read you the scorecards just as housekeeping here, so we're all on the same page. The judges had Adames up 78-74, 77-74, and one guy had it 80-72. Seemed a bit aggressive, but after the fight, they interviewed Julian and his trainer Breadman, and they were both like, and I agreed with them, like, dude, this is a top level fight. He hadn't been down. He was getting beat up, but I didn't think he was in danger of getting hurt. But, in boxing, one punch could change the course of the guy's life. What'd you think of the stoppage? What'd you think of the fight? Do you agree with the scorecards? Obviously, there was big discrepancy from the tightest to the widest. What'd you think?
The 4th round was incredible that Williams survived it. Incredible. What heart.
Yeah.
What grit, heart, toughness. Williams, the former champion, like you said, we had him on a couple years ago after he upset Jarrett Hurd to win the title. The heart that he showed and the experience to survive that 4th was incredible. Then the 9th round, he was hurt again, similar to that, and he was taking a beating, and he was surviving it, but he was getting beat up. But then there were actually spots that the referee could have maybe stepped in earlier, but then he chooses a spot where, towards the end of the round with 15 seconds left, whatever, and I'm not saying that the referee's cognizant of the time. He's not. All he's basing his decision supposedly on is whether or not the guy can continue or he's in danger and he can't continue. That's all. Not on how much time is left, how much time isn't left. It's supposed to be strictly based on that. And Williams, he picks a time, the ref, a time where the referees are under siege, where week in and week out, you're seeing some kind of bad decision by a judge or by the referees in a ring, doing something that just, again, as I said earlier, just makes you scratch your head and say, what's going on here? You got noble warriors getting in the ring, and you can't have honest, competent, non-biased refs, or at least where refs and judges, where at least you feel they're non-biased, where not week in and week out you can point a finger and say, well, that didn't look right, or that wasn't right. So I think people were more down about it because it's following so many weeks of examples of bad reffing, bad judging, where the people are just fed up. They just felt like, oh, again? Here it is again. So he picked a bad time after Adames is dominating the round, winning the fight, but dominating that round. And he picks that moment where Williams is near the ropes. He wasn't in good position. I don't think he could see everything that a referee's supposed to be in position to see going on. And he saw a punch thrown and maybe landed by Adames, but I think he made up his mind. I think that he had already made up his mind that the accumulative damage that Williams had been taking for a lot of the fight, and now in this round, that he made up his mind that he took enough, that he should stop, and maybe he's in danger of getting hurt if he continues taking these kind of punches, or this kind of, this kind of batterment that he's taken in spots throughout the fight. I think he made up his mind, and that's a problem, because once he made up his mind, he wasn't seeing what a referee always has to see, what's going on in front of you at that moment in the ring. He was no longer seeing that. He saw a punch thrown by a guy. I think we have it. We can put it up. I told Rob to get it, to put it up. But Adames drew a punch that landed. And I think, like I said, he already had it set in his head. Okay, I'm going to stop this. And he started to come in. And what he didn't see was Williams was still okay. He was still aware of what was going on. He was, he wasn't stumbling around. And he was actually throwing a punch back. He was actually doing what you want to see a fighter do before you stop a fight. You want to see, do they retaliate? Do they throw back? Do they defend themselves? And do they throw back? Do they have the wherewithal to throw back? And he did. And then he steps in. Like I said, I don't think he saw it. I think that he already, and here we're going to see it. Rob was right there as I wanted him to be, to get it. And here it is. That in the white is Adames. And Adames is attacking. He's a southpaw. He throws a left hand, partly blocked. Some of these punches are not landing. They're being blocked. But there's no doubt that he's taking. And again, I think he made up his mind. Let's see it again. He steps in, and you can see the reaction of Williamson.
That's
Williams.
exactly what I thought, Teddy. He had his mind made
Look,
up, and he was like, just
landing.
waiting.
Ken, look. Those are now. He's been hurt earlier, no doubt about it. But those were blocked. I think
to your point, he already had his mind made up.
He did, because he doesn't even see. Look where he is. He doesn't. His back's turned.
I know.
He doesn't see that Williams is landed. He doesn't see that Williams is alert, aware. He's not staggering. He's not in trouble. Now again, I will make the case that before that he had been hurt. I will make the case that throughout the fight that although Williams had his moments, because he had his moments where he caught Adames with straight right hands, caught the southpaw with the southpaw killer, the straight right, and he staggered Adames a couple times. He did, but Adames was physically stronger. Physically, he was stronger. He was more equipped for an inside fight. And when he got to the geography that Adames needed to be at his best, which was in close, he had by far the upper hand. That's where he did his damage. Even in that 9th round, he caught Williams with a short right hand on the inside. Williams needed to be on the outside. Now, he's a gutsy guy. He fights wherever he has to fight. But Williams, the geography for Williams to really have his best chance to win this fight was to be on the outside, using his jab, using his legs to move, to keep Adames from getting set and getting into what he does, which is to come at you in waves. To get into his wheelhouse where Adames at his best, he comes at you in waves. He's physically strong. He'll throw punches at you like a rain burst, like where it's a cloud burst of punches coming at you, and you better not get stuck in that storm, because if you get stuck in that storm, without an umbrella, you got a problem. And he was doing that. He was coming in waves with torrential outbursts of punches where Williams was surviving them, but Adames was the boss. Adames was ahead in the fight. Adames was having his kind of fight where for the most part he was getting to fight again in the area in close that made sense for him, being a stronger guy, by being a more physical guy where he could do what he needed to do on the inside. Williams tried to fight the fight plan that made sense for him on the outside, and he did in spots, and he landed right hands in spots, staggering Adames in a couple of spots, but he wasn't able to be consistent at that kind of fight on the outside where he had to do it round after round for 12 rounds. And you know what? It's hard. It's very hard when you're fighting a guy that puts that kind of pressure, that's that physically strong. It's hard to fight the right fight on the outside, moving, jabbing, picking spots, pot-shotting. It's hard to fight that fight for 12 rounds. You know why? Because it mentally, emotionally, and physically takes a toll. It takes a toll on you because you have to work harder to keep the guy off you, to control the guy, to stay ahead, to stay out of danger, than he has to work to put you in danger. Because when a guy's coming forward, he's in charge. So mentally, he's in a better place. Emotionally, he's in a better place, a more confident. He's not being worn out mentally and emotionally the way a guy is that's being attacked all the time. When you're being attacked all the time, you're getting worn out. You're getting broken down. And Williams was getting broken down. His heart was keeping him in the fight. No doubt about it. But there were rounds he won. But there's no doubt that Adames was ahead, that he was doing what he wanted to do, and accomplish what he looks to accomplish in his fight, which is to break you down, wear you down, round by round, punch by punch. There's no doubt that was, and again, to fight the kind of fight that I thought Williams had to fight to really win this fight, it's very hard. There's a reason why Ali didn't fight that against Foreman, fighting on the outside, moving. Yeah, Ali was older. That's part of it. But he couldn't sustain it for all those rounds. Ali could not sustain moving and jabbing and pot-shotting on the outside against Foreman, the beast that wanted to be close. So what did he do? He came up with the rope-a-dope, and he broke him down that way. But Ali is Ali. He broke him down that way. But he took punishment to do it. But he got the result that he needed to get. He knew that he couldn't move around and do it for the entirety of the fight. And I think that Williams understood the same thing, that he couldn't stay on the outside. And to the credit of Adames, he was making Williams expend more energy to keep him off, to try to win rounds, to survive rounds, to be in a fight. He was making him expend energy, taking petrol out of the gas tank that would hurt him down the stretch, that would help Williams down the stretch. Again, Williams didn't have to work as hard in those first 5, 6, 7, 8 rounds as not Williams. Adames didn't have to work as hard as Williams had to work in those first 6, 7, 8 rounds, 9 rounds. And it had a toll. And I think it depleted his tank a little bit. It definitely had a toll on him. And a lot of times the fight comes down to who fights their fight, who gets to the place, the geography where you're fighting the fight that makes sense for you. And for the most part, that was Williams. Now look, that was Adames. Now look, I understand why Adames' trainer was so upset, because we just showed it. At that moment was the wrong moment.
You mean why J-Rock's trainer was so upset?
Yeah, why J-Rock...
I think you said Adames.
Yeah, you're right. Where Williams' trainer was so upset with the stoppage, because at that moment, the referee was in poor position. He should have stopped it at that moment. Now, again, would it have made a difference? I thought that Adames was in charge. He was the boss. He was starting to take over that fight, especially in that round. Maybe it would have avalanched into continuing in a 10th, 11th, 12th round, where maybe would have got Williams out of there. But Williams deserved the chance to land another right hand. He at that moment. And then, look, if the next round is more of the same and Adames is dominating, stop it. But
agreed. That's exactly right.
I think he
deserved the right to continue.
Yeah, I think he earned the right to continue. And his trainer earned the right to say what he said because of that.
Yep.
And also because of the low blows. Nobody really touched on that enough. there was a lot of inside fighting.
Yeah.
Where Adames was fighting inside where he wanted to be, where he needed to be, and go to the body to wear down Williams, which was doing the job. It was a smart fight plan by Adames, and he was executing it really well, going to the body, putting water in the basement. But a lot of those punches were low. There was a lot of punches that were straying a little low.
Oh, you're right.
And the referee never warned them. He never obviously didn't take a point away, but he never really stopped them from doing. And I think that Williams' trainer was really upset, obviously about the stoppage, but about the way that the referee went about controlling or not controlling the fight all night when it came to his fighter, and not in any way saying anything to Adames for low blows that his fighter was taking throughout the night.
That's right.
I think it was a lot of
what the trainer you would expect a trainer to do is defend his guy to the end.
I think he was defending him, and I think he was frustrated that with the stoppage, and also that, hey, all night long, what did you do? You let my guy take low blows. A lot of them were legitimate body shots, but you let him take a lot of low blows. You never once stopped it, and now you're freaking stopping the fight and taking away my fighter's last chance, maybe, to get a title back for
a payday.
Where maybe I think it was an interim title where maybe he can. Maybe he can land the right hand. Maybe he could pull it out of the fire. It does happen. It does happen in this sport. I don't know that it was likely it was going to happen, to be honest, as I just said. But he earned that right to have that chance to find out.
Yep. No, I agree. We got a few more to cover, but let's jump over to the Madison Square Garden card. Adam Kownacki in action against Joe Cusumano. Cusumano comes in as a plus 700 underdog and just put it on Adam Kownacki. I think that's probably the end of the road for Kownacki, although in the heavyweight division, you just never know. The top of the class is pretty thin after you get past the top 3 to 5 guys. So then there's always a payday for a heavyweight who can come in and at least put up a bit of a fight. But man, Kownacki did not look good. Plus 700 underdog just beat the brakes off him, knocked him down. He was lucky to get out of the first round. I mean, the ref could have easily stopped that fight. Kownacki survives. He landed a few good body shots, I think, in the third round, which kept the fight going a little longer than it had to, and then eventually, eighth round TKO. Cusumano stops Kownacki, who hasn't won a fight since he beat old Chris Arreola a few years ago in Brooklyn. What'd you think? End of the road for Kownacki, or does he hang around for a few more?
Are you kidding me? Are you serious? Are you serious, man? Are you serious? Joe, you got me all discombobulated. Listen, Ken, it should have been the end of the road when I came on this air a year ago, 6 months ago, whatever the figure was. I tweeted it that if anyone cares about this very game, Adam Kownacki, they should retire him immediately, before he really gets damaged worse. He's already been damaged, but before he gets hurt worse. And he got beat up by a guy who's not that good. And I don't want to knock any fighters at all. You talked about is the road long for Kownacki. Let me tell you something. The winner, the road is very short. That Cusumano, the road is about as long as my driveway. That's how long the road is for his career. And listen, God bless him. I wish him well. I hope he makes me wrong. I hope he wins a world title. I hope he does nothing but good things for him and his family. I know nothing about him except what I know as a trainer, as a person that's been in this business 50 years, what my eyes tell me, what my experience tells me, what my brain tells me. Cusumano is on a short road to where the same thing that happened to Kownacki is going to happen to him. He is not good enough. He might be game enough, but he ain't good enough to compete in this sport, in this profession, in that division. he's lucky he beat this guy. That this guy is so shot, so easy to. I mean, like I always say, the old timers, these guys get insulted if you miss them. And like the great Mickey Duff, one of the greatest boxing minds of all time, greatest promoters of all time, he used to say, Teddy, it's harder to miss these guys than it is to hit them. I mean, you can't miss them. Cusumano, all I can tell you, if someone's out there they're selling stock on them, I wouldn't. Be careful. Be careful. Don't go and cash in don't cash in your savings to go and say, oh, I'm gonna buy a bunch of stock over here, because you know what? Yeah, that stock is gonna be worth about what this is worth. Paper.
So you're saying we should be selling it short.
No, listen, I don't even know if you're going to get a chance to sell it short, because I don't know what you would sell. I don't even know after seeing.
There's no buyers.
Anyway with honesty in their heart and a brain and has been around this business at all. They don't have to be around like me, but at all will say there's nothing to sell there. I mean, he's a game guy. He'll be an opponent for someone. He'll be a stepping stone for somebody who's going to knock him out. And listen, again, people are going to say, oh, you're knocking the guy. I'm here to tell the truth. I'm just telling the truth as I know it. As I know it. Not as someone else knows it or wants it to be because they have an agenda or connection or they want to be liked by everybody. They want to go along to get along. I'm past that. I'm 25 miles past that stuff. That no longer exists in my life. Okay? It did maybe when I was 15.
I completely agree.
But not now. Now, I want to tell the truth. I want to know that I could go to bed at night knowing I told the truth, and that I told the fans out there that trust me, that trust us to get the truth, that they got it. So, like I said, there were moments there where he looked like Kownacki could possibly even at this stage, in this form, which is he's in a terrible place. I just hope he's okay. I hope the guy's okay the rest of his life, and that he shouldn't even have the choice of fighting again. I'll tell you why. If the people around him care at all about him, they won't let him fight. And if that doesn't go right, and he still tries to fight, then if there's a commission that allows him to still be licensed and still fight, they should shut that commission down immediately, because there's no sense in having a commission that doesn't commission what needs to be commissioned, that would look at a fighter like this and say, oh yeah, let's let him fight again. If you can't decipher that, if you can't see what has to be seen that he shouldn't fight, then you know what? You should not be in a position to be making decisions on fighters or on anything in this sport.
I think we can both agree that the commission is not going to do that, and the people around Kownacki are very unlikely to tell him no more fights, as we've seen time and time again.
Ken, I pray that you're
wrong. Do too, Teddy, but it's hard to it's hard to make it to see things otherwise when the same shit happens over and over and over. If someone can make $100 to get this kid destroyed, they'll do it. Let's move on. I don't want to keep beating a dead horse there. No pun intended. Erickson Lubin gets the win over Luis Arias with a fifth round knockout. Arias was one for a cheap shot in the fifth, and it looked like he lit a fire under Lubin's ass, who came out and just like hit him with a body shot and then cracked him to the head. Stopped the fight, one-sided all day. I don't know did we learn anything with that one? What'd you think?
Again, I'm going to be consistent. Got to be consistent in life. Lubin's 25-2. His 2 losses, he was knocked out 2 times. He's a southpaw. I caught his fights early when he first turned pro on ESPN. And they were talking about this guy like he's the next great thing. I don't know what they were saying, but they were talking about him. And he's a solid enough guy. He don't embarrass himself at all. He had beat a lot of guys, but they were talking about him that he was an elite. He was going to be with the elite. He was going to be one of the best you ever saw. And I'm talking about top rank, people that are, supposed to know something about this business. They signed him. They had him on ESPN. But I give credit to top rank. They got out quick. When they saw what I saw, they got out. They did. They dropped him. And I called his fights on ESPN. And I called it the way I call fights when I was calling fights. That I just didn't see what others was seeing, to say the things, the superlatives, the beyond superlatives, the crazy things they were saying about how great this guy was going to be, the great amateur, he turned pro early. He didn't stay around for the Olympics because he was going to go and win a world title. And everybody was so high on this guy. And when I saw him fight the first time, he won, of course, I was like, what are they seeing here that I'm not seeing? Maybe I better go get my eyes checked. Maybe I got to go. My wife told me to go for an appointment. I put it off. I don't go to doctors much. Maybe I need to, wear glasses when I watch fights. I couldn't understand what they're seeing. So I was never impressed by him. Again, he's a game guy. He's a guy that'll beat a lot of guys, but he's not that guy. And anyway, before he was knocked out by Fundora. He was knocked out by Fundora. He was knocked out by Fundora in a fight before this fight. This was like a comeback fight for him, I guess. Get back on track. He was knocked out by Fundora. Fundora since he's the guy who's like a skyscraper, but except now he's got a lot of broken windows. Fundora got knocked out since he knocked out Lubin. Like I said, he also got knocked out by Jamal Charlo back in 2017. Those are his two knockout losses, to Fundora and to Jamal Charlo in 2017.
Jamel.
Yeah,
Jamal Charlo.
Lubin lost those two. And again, you're losing to two good fighters, well, especially Charlo, because we don't know how good really Fundora was, because when he stepped up a little bit, he got knocked out. But, or at least he got exposed where they had a guy 7'2" fighting on the inside like it was 4'3", and I never thought he should be fighting on the inside like that. He was getting away with it with that level of opponent, but eventually I thought that the day was going to come. He was going to pay a price where he wouldn't get away with it, and he should have been taught how to use his height, which they didn't think he had to, and they found out maybe he had to now, and maybe it's too late. Who knows?
Brian Mendoza stopped.
He did.
Stopped Fundora.
And Mendoza's the kind of guy that beats these guys that are built up, that have flaws, but you don't see them early on. They're just built up because they're solid guys. They're experienced. They've been in with guys. They haven't been treated with a silver spoon. They haven't been treated with kid gloves. They're not great. They're not spectacular in one area, but they're solid. They're not going to fall apart. They're going to get in position to, if you give them a chance to time you with a punch, to deliver a punch. Maybe they can punch a little bit. Like I said, they're not the fastest guy. They're not on everyone's radar to be the next great thing, but they're the kind of guys that upset the apple cart when you have a guy that's been built up falsely to a certain extent with soft opponents, where you think they're better than they are, where you're not seeing their flaws, you're not seeing the mistakes that you need to see if they're gonna become a better fighter. So, anyway, listen, good luck to Lubin. I hope he makes me wrong. Hey, doesn't mean he can't win a title. There's 452 titles out there. Last I counted. You know what I mean?
Get yourself one.
Yeah, you can go find one. You can go. That doesn't mean you're a top fighter, but it means that you could get a belt somewhere. And then, what was it?
That's right.
What was the other guy that was on the undercard? This was on the Berlanga undercard we're talking about. And then there was, I got to mention him, only because he's Albanian. Because my wife's Albanian.
But he's also from Staten Island. He's the Albanian bear, Rashat Mati.
Listen, if you're going to really get down
beats
to
up
it,
Dakota Linger.
I wasn't getting into all this. He's from one of the gyms that my foundation funded for 10 years. We don't anymore, but we got a lot of kids off the street. My greatest feeling about that, spending all the money that the foundation spent to run 3 gyms. One of them was there already, but it was out of operation. The PAL had pulled out. They weren't funding no more. It was closed. We opened it again. We funded it, and then we actually built and created 2 other gyms, and they're all in existence. They're doing a good job. This kid came from one of those original gyms that the Dr. Atlas Foundation funded, started. And no longer does, but for 10 years we did to get kids off the street. Turned out we developed a lot of good fighters, but that was not really the focus for me. The reason I okayed spending all that money, and it was about $100,000 a year for 10 years. So you could do the math. It was a good amount of money to run. And I had people like Mike Cusick, the one of the good politicians from Staten Island that helped me, Jimmy Otto, the good real politicians, public servants, not guys that just take, guys that give, guys that understand they work for the people don't work for them. I had those kind of people helping me do this. We saved a lot of kids. We did. Boxing can save kids. If it's done right, it can save. We also created a lot of champions. There's no doubt. But that wasn't why I did this, why I okayed spending all that money. I did it to save kids that were never going to become champions, but to give them a haven, give them an alternative to the violence on the street, to give them a chance to get from point A to point B in their life. And you know what? People ask me, what out of all those gyms, and you got great trainers like Lou Manfred in there, and you doing a great job, and all the Lou that's in there, I can't think of his name. They're good. They're good people, and they care about the kids. But let me tell you, when people ask me, with all the champions that have come out of these gyms, and there will continue to come out, even though the foundation is no longer involved, they maintain themselves now. They're continuing. But when people ask me, Teddy, what are you the proud? Who are you the proud of? This champ, that Olympian, this guy, that guy? What are you the proudest of? No, none of that. None of that. There was a girl that was living in Brooklyn in a car with her mother, and she got into the gyms, and my foundation was paying a certified teacher to be there 5 days a week to tutor the kids as part of the deal that if you went into these gyms, you had to go and be tutored by the teacher at least 1 day a week. She, through that tutoring, through the gyms, through the confidence, through the direction, through the discipline, through everything that those gyms provided for this special girl, she's in the United States Navy now. That is why, no matter what, I got disappointed by a lot of things with those gyms. I did. But I'll never be disappointed in the end with those stories. And she wasn't the only one, but that's the one that stands out. That girl is in the United States Navy because those gyms gave her the support she needed at that point in her life, helped her with the direct. It was her character too, no doubt about it, but that it helped her with getting to the right place. It helped her, just helped her a little bit get from point A to point B, and for all that. For all the disappointments, and there were disappointments, I'll be honest with you, but I would do it again, just for that one person, and it was more than one person that's been saved, but for that one. So this kid, good kid, and I got to mention it real quick, only because, not because he's from the gym, even though you brought that up. I wasn't even going to bring it up, but Staten Island, all that stuff, but because he's Albanian. My wife's Albanian. My children are part Albanian. I love the Albanians, and they would be mad at me because they all come out behind their fighter. They come out with the flags. They come out in droves. They buy tickets. They go out there, and they would be mad if I didn't mention him. Look, he's got a long way to go. His name is Rashad Mahdi. He's now 14-0. He beat a tough kid, Dakota Linger, who had won the tough man. Look, he beat a kid that is very raw, very game, but not very good, quite frankly. But very game, very tough. The kid he beat, I think, has been stopped 3 times now. So I don't think he's ever been dropped, but I think the ref has stopped the fight 3 times where he's been outclassed. And that happened again. But he was in there with a guy coming forward, game, trying. And the thing that, again, Twilight Zone, that confused me with the commentating, at one point the commentator says, well, Linger obviously, isn't hard to miss, which he's not. He just walks in, which he does. He's very, he doesn't have much technique, which he doesn't. He's just a game kid. Just a game kid, that's all. But one thing that they said, but he has heavy hands. Heavy hands? Though maybe if he's in the gym with barbells in him, Ken, maybe then his hands are heavy. Maybe. Like if he's picking up a couple of 20-pound barbells, all right, heavy hands. But in the ring, as a fighter, I did not see heavy hands. I just saw a game guy with a big heart that was outclassed by Mahdi, who was a good amateur, a very good amateur. He's a young kid. Again, they call him the Albanian Bear, and he's from Staten Island. He's a good kid.
That's a great nickname, by the way.
He's a good kid. His father's involved. That could go both ways. That could go sideways too with fathers involved. So again, you get the truth here. You don't get BS, even if he is from my gym. But the father's done a good job with him so far. Obviously loves him. Obviously very involved. Very, very proud that he's a fighter. Hopefully things can continue the right way for him. I thought the kid, to give a quick breakdown, look, he had the right opponent in front of him, but I thought he moved too much. Some people were knocking him. They said, Teddy, that guy runs all night. I don't know that he ran, but I get it. He moved too much. And I'd like to see him, but that comes down to a trainer, where you need a trainer to teach that. And there's not a lot of them out there, quite frankly, that can teach really the right way. And maybe that's what he needs. But whatever, because now you're in the pros. You're not in amateurs no more. You got to be able to sit down a little bit, be smart. Don't be a sitting duck. Don't be irresponsible defensively. But he's not a real physically strong kid. He's still growing. He's not physically. So I get it. But instead of running and moving all over the place, I would rather he steps out. He controls range. He's got long arms. He's got a pretty good reach on him where he could step out. He could set his feet, where he could grab the floor a little bit, still be elusive, still not, be in front of you where you're a target, but where you can step out and you can fire back. If you're running all over the place, it's hard to do that. But if you step back and you're set, you still can get out of harm's way. You still can control the ring. You can navigate the ring. You can have ring generalship without running. And where you're a little bit more enticing to watch. You're a little bit more fan-friendly to watch. And look, he'll get a chance to do that, but he needs a trainer to help him in those ways where you learn those things too. If some night you got to get on your bike to pull it out, get on your bike, pull it out. You could do it. But on the other nights, be able to grab that floor, step out, be able to counter back, be able to make the guy pay a little bit more, be in position for defense and offense, be able to move your head, make a miss, and then counter instead of just using your legs 90% of the time. Where some guys who are a little bit better might track you down, might know how to track you down a little bit better, where they start to get confident because they feel that you have nothing to hold them off with. So I'd like to see him improve in those dimensions. a little bit. I remember the kid when he started. He was like 12 years old. So obviously I have a little bit of heart for him in that way, even though I haven't seen him for years. So I would, but again, we're giving him a little play. We got, we get 300,000 people just only on our subscriber list that can hear about this if they're watching. And if it gives them a little boost, that's a good thing. And obviously he's going to sell tickets too. And again, he's got a promoter. He's one of those kids that's got a real promoter. So he's going to be taken care of. He's going to be given the right fights. But remember, pay me now or pay me later. But sooner or later, if you don't learn the things you have to learn, even though you're fighting guys, you could get away with a lot of stuff. But if you don't learn the things you got to learn now, you're gonna pay a price later. Sooner or later, you got to learn those. You got to learn those things. So anyway, just from here.
Hopefully Marty and his team appreciate the color, because the amount of requests we get from people to talk about this guy, talk about that guy, there's just only so much we can cover every week. So shout out to Marty and the team. Hope he continues to do well, and we'll be watching. Teddy, that's a pretty thorough breakdown of 2 weeks worth of action. We got 2 hours and 10 minutes. Hopefully the fans feel satisfied with the coverage from the last 2 weeks.
Listen, we only
Slow
did
weekend
it,
in boxing.
Ken, we only did it, and we added maybe an hour onto the show, or maybe 45 minutes. You know why? Because we love you. Because we know that you missed. We know that we didn't give you those fights last week. Ken was in the desert. Thank God he came out of the desert. Thank God he came. I wasn't sure if he was going to make it out. I'll be honest with you. But
True. Me too.
And neither was he. But thank God he made it out of the desert. I just felt we could have made it easier on ourselves, to be honest, and skipped 45 minutes today, not covering this. But I really felt that it was important. And Ken felt the same way. To bring you, I don't care if it's 10 of you out there. It's a lot more than 10. There's thousands. But I don't care if there was 10 of you out there that wanted to hear about those fights last week that didn't get to hear us talk about. I wanted to make sure that you 10 got to hear us and our thoughts on those fights.
On all the fights that matter, for sure. And this weekend coming up, slow weekend in boxing. There's a couple small cards, and there's a UFC fight night. Sean Strickland in main event against Magomedov. But we'll be back next week to cover it all, per usual, back on the regular schedule. Thank you guys for accommodating me last week.
That's an interesting fight.
Of course. Yeah, they usually
all
the
fights on UFC are interesting, but that is an interesting. Who do you like in that fight? Real quick.
I like Strickland only because I like him personally. If I had to make a wager, I'd probably take Magomedov.
Yeah, me too.
I hope Strickland gets the win. He's entertaining. Yeah. I love to see him fight, and he needs a win.
No, I agree. I tell you, he strikes well. He strikes well. He's
Strickland 1-2 in his last 3. He lost to Alex Pereira, and he lost to Jared Cannonier. Decision to Cannonier, but he got knocked out by Pereira, and then he
got knocked out by Pereira, of course.
Imavov.
Yeah, he got knocked out by Pereira, who knocked out our man, Adesanya, and then Adesanya came back and knocked him out. But I'll tell you something about Pereira. I just finished giving accolades to Cannonier. I'll tell you something about Strickland. I just finished giving accolades to Cannonier. And I thought that fight with Cannonier was close. I'm trying to review it in my head now because it's been a while, but he surprised a lot of people in that fight, Strickland, or at least that fight. That was a close fight. He fought a good. I know Cannonier's 39 years old. I get it, but Cannonier just looked so impressive the other night, So impressive. And then when you attach that to how well Strickland fought him, and I don't know if some people might have thought he won, but I'm trying to remember if I thought that. But all I remember is that was a close fight. So, yeah, I think he should be the underdog in this fight. I think it will be a tough fight. But again, with that performance that he had with Cannonier, at least that bodes well for Strickland, who's going into a tough spot.
Yep, for sure. Well, Teddy, like I said, thanks again for guys putting up with me being off the grid last Monday. Thanks to the fans for tuning into the Jerry Eisenberg interview. Hopefully we got everything covered that you guys wanted to hear about, and we'll be back next week per usual to break down the UFC and any events, any ongoings in the boxing world. We've got a huge fight coming up on July 29th, obviously, with Crawford Spence. We'll be recording a fight plan sometime in the next few weeks, so we'll get that up for you guys. But a lot of exciting things coming up. Obviously, our man Dustin Poirier in action on the 29th as well against Justin Gaethje, part 2.
What a fight that's going to be.
Yep. So with that, Teddy, thanks again for last week. Thank you for all the support. Appreciate you guys. And please, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the show. Leave us a comment. Keep the love coming, and we're going to keep delivering the content. Thank you guys for being with us. And Teddy, have a great week.